My fiancé proposed to my older sister. Everyone expected me to make a huge scene. Even my parents advised me to give in to her. But instead, I calmly gave them my blessing and even announced my own engagement to the wealthy and prominent William Sinclair. Sorry to disappoint, but the tragic act ends here. I'm switching tracks. From now on, I'm choosing the bold and carefree path. Today was supposed to be my engagement party with Jason Miller. But Jason never showed up, and his phone couldn't be reached. His parents didn't know where he was either. As the guests started whispering and speculating, I took the microphone that a server handed me, gracefully picked up the wine glass from the table, raised it slightly, and said, "Sorry everyone, I'm sure my fiancé must have run into something urgent." Before I could even finish speaking, the other main character of the day, Jason, walked through the entrance. Fingers tightly interlocked with my biological sister, Emily. He raised his voice and interrupted me. "I truly apologize." Then he let go of Emily's hand and gently pulled her into his arms, lowering his head with what looked like genuine guilt. Step by step, he walked up to me and held out his hand. "Sorry for the trouble." I set my glass down, handed him the microphone, and naturally stepped back. Jason gave me a small nod, looked around at the crowd, and said, "To everyone here today and to Miss Olivia, I sincerely apologize. The engagement party between me and Miss Olivia is now canceled, but today I'd like to ask you all to be witnesses. From the beginning to the end, the person I truly want to marry is her." As he said this, Jason turned toward Emily, knelt down on one knee and asked earnestly, "Miss Emily, will you marry me?" Emily didn't respond. She looked up at me, then down at Jason again. Tears rolled down silently, as if she were in torment. After all, he was openly stealing his fiancée's engagement party to propose to her younger sister. Jason clearly saw her hesitation and gently took her hand to give her encouragement. The guests, who had started to trickle away, all turned back to watch the drama unfold. The whispering began to spread. Didn't the Millers and the Parkers announce this engagement years ago? And now they're switching brides? The Parker eldest daughter rarely appears in public, but what a striking debut. I heard Jason was into the younger sister all along. Does this mean Olivia stole her sister's fiancé? Do you think Emily's gonna freak out? It's not like they were already married. What's the big deal? Sure enough, no matter the setting or social class, gossip is a human instinct. I smiled slightly, putting on my most sincere look, and urged her. "Emily, what are you standing there for? Say yes already." I hadn't expected it to make her cry even harder. She lowered her head, shook it, and pressed her lips together without a word. Jason, still on one knee, finally couldn't hold back. He turned and snapped at me. "Olivia, stop torturing Emily. If you have a problem, take it out on me. She's innocent." I tried to stay composed but couldn't help muttering, "Are you crazy?" The atmosphere in the banquet hall froze for a moment. My friends quickly gathered around, clearly worried I'd make a scene, and tried to pull me out of the hall. "Liv, don't be upset. We'll talk it through later." "Are you okay, Olivia? Let me take you downstairs to rest." Even my parents, Charles and Linda Parker, came up and patted me on the shoulder, trying to console me. "Your sister has always let you have everything since you were little. She only wants Jason. Be the mature one just this once. Let her have him." "So I'm not even allowed to speak? You've all finished the conversation for me?" I pushed their hands off and sighed. All right. You've all said enough. Now let me say a few words." I signaled for the microphone again and shoved past the group crowding around me. Not far away, Emily had crouched down, sobbing in Jason's arms. With the crowd watching in suspense, I stepped forward. The speakers around the hall echoed my voice, each word loud and clear. "With all my heart, I sincerely wish my sister and Mr. Miller a lifetime of love and happiness." Emily lifted her head from Jason's arms when she heard my voice. Her eyes were red again, tears threatening to fall. I had no interest in watching their performance any longer. Clearing my throat, I continued, "At the same time, I sincerely invite everyone." Before I could finish, the doors of the banquet hall were pushed open. Someone stepped in slowly from the entrance. The crowd instinctively made way, and murmurs of surprise broke out. "Isn't that the heir of the Sinclair family? What's he doing here? No way, William Sinclair came to watch the drama too?" I walked over to him, took his arm and smiled warmly, as I addressed everyone. You are all cordially invited to attend my engagement party with William Sinclair on the 21st of next month at Garden Bloom Estate. The room went completely silent. Unlike the Parkers and the Millers, whose family wealth relied heavily on their ancestors, the Sinclair family had been in politics for generations, with deep influence. And yet, William Sinclair had chosen the business world at the age of 20, built a reputation for ruthless strategy, and within just 5 years gained control of most of West City's economic core. He wasn't just rich, he was a rising power among the elite, a true young tycoon from a top-tier family. No one in the room dared to cross him openly. No one, that is, except for my ever-devoted sister Emily. She was helped up by Jason, her expression filled with disbelief. "Olivia, don't joke like that," she said. "Mr. Sinclair isn't someone we can make fun of." I tilted my head, genuinely confused. "Joke? What joke?" Jason instinctively stepped in front of her, shielding her with his arm. "Olivia, I know I was wrong today. If you want compensation, name it, but you shouldn't involve the Sinclair family in this." My father, Charles Parker, finally shoved through the crowd, his face anxious as he reached out to pull me away. "Olivia, don't be reckless. Do you even know who that is?" Before I could respond, William gently pulled me 2 steps back with him. Charles followed close, apologizing while still trying to grab me. "Mr. Sinclair, my younger daughter didn't mean to offend. You seem to have misunderstood something, Mr. Parker," William said, his tone calm but firm. He didn't even look displeased. I held the microphone up to him, and he lowered his head slightly, his voice deep and composed. "Olivia has already extended the invitation, so I would also like to warmly welcome all of you to join us at Garden Bloom Estate on the 21st of next month for our engagement party." He paused, then took the mic from my hand. "And while I'm at it, I'd also like to wish Miss Emily and Mr. Miller a happy ending as a loving couple." With that, he let go of the mic. It hit the floor with a heavy thunk. A strangely auspicious sound in such a tense moment, especially paired with his previous statement. It landed like a gavel, striking everyone's conscience. The hall went dead silent for a second, then erupted. The younger guests all around the room started buzzing with excited whispers. "I thought Miss Olivia was the one being dumped. But something feels off now. Right? It looks like Jason switched fiancés last minute, but Olivia seemed fully prepared. I didn't even notice earlier, Garden Bloom Estate? That's what she just said. That's Olivia." No kidding, we were all just extras in their little performance. William Sinclair himself, he's crazy about her. The chatter wasn't exactly quiet. William clearly heard it, and he seemed quite pleased. He turned his head slightly, glanced at the group of whispering heirs and socialites, and gave them an approving nod. My eyes followed his line of sight. Those few immediately got even more excited, practically giddy. I couldn't help but sigh. What is with you people and your obsession with shipping us like some power couple? I raised my hand and patted William's chest lightly, as if taming a proud peacock. "Tone it down a little, will you?" The next morning, the headline across every West City media outlet exploded with the news of my engagement to William Sinclair. With his permission, every detail had been made public. On my phone, Charles had been messaging non-stop since yesterday afternoon, demanding to know how I ended up involved with William, asking if I was trying to destroy the Parker family. "Do you realize what kind of people the Sinclairs are? Do you think you can handle that?" But then, after seeing the headlines this morning, his tone flipped entirely. "Olivia, you have to behave yourself and make this work. The Parker family's entire future depends on you now." "Depends on me now?" I tapped my finger on that last line and couldn't help but laugh. Charles had no business talent and hadn't been able to run the company for years. The Parkers had been relying on the Millers to stay afloat. For over 2 decades, our family's future had rested entirely on Jason. Which is precisely why, once they found out Jason and Emily had gotten involved, they gave up on me without hesitation. My parents, they had always favored my fragile, sickly sister. A good marriage? They couldn't wait to give it to her. The only reason I was chosen back then was because Jason insisted on pursuing me. They couldn't just force him to marry Emily instead. But now that Jason had willingly gone over to her, they finally got what they wanted. Just as I was thinking about all this, William came over, holding a tray with a glass of water, and sat down beside me. "What's on your mind?" he asked. I picked up a green grape and let out a dramatic sigh. Biased parents. A chronically ill sister, a two-faced ex-fiancé, and poor, pitiful me. William took my hand, the one holding the grape, and guided it to his lips. Then, mimicking my tone, he gave an exaggerated sigh. Ugh, my fiancé almost got bullied, and worst of all, she nearly forgot to feed me fruit. This man knew exactly how to deflate any of my drama. My attempt at playing the victim had failed. "All right," I said, grinning. "Let me try harder to please you." I picked another grape and brought it to his mouth. William accepted it without hesitation, speaking with a lazy drawl. "A golden catch like me? I'm worth making them wait a few days." Now that William and I were getting engaged, it was only natural for both families to arrange a meeting. The Parkers, desperate to latch on to the Sinclairs, would no doubt try to squeeze every possible benefit out of this. The question was, how long could they hold off before they ruined everything by being too greedy? I guessed maybe a week. William, shaking his head confidently, said, "One day." The next day, sure enough, my parents had William cornered in the living room, trying to make small talk and stall him while sizing him up. I quietly slipped away upstairs to pack. I was planning to move into my own place. Just as I was organizing my things, the door opened. Emily stepped in, carrying a cup of coffee with a warm smile. "Olivia, I brewed this myself. Thought you might like to try it." I glanced at the uneven kiss marks all over her collarbone. She couldn't even be bothered to cover them up anymore. Impressive. She paused just inside the doorway. Her smile never wavered. "What's wrong?" I set the clothes down and picked up my phone from the desk. Then, right in front of her, I powered it off and tossed it onto the bed. "Take yours out." Emily hesitated. "What are you?" I blinked slowly, then gave her a choice. Turn it off, or turn around and leave. A few moments later, the phone hidden in her purse, clearly recording, was taken out and shut off. She also closed the door behind her. The smile vanished from her face. Her voice turned cold. "I've been wondering since yesterday, how did you manage to hook someone like William Sinclair?" She gave me a long look. "I have to admit, Olivia, maybe you're not as useless as I thought." I spread my hands casually. "Whatever I've done doesn't hold a candle to your tactics, Emily. That you've got the whole Parker family wrapped around your finger, especially our parents." Since the day she was born prematurely, our parents had treated Emily like she'd break at any moment. No running, no jumping, no going out, nothing dangerous. She was kept indoors like a fragile doll. But that precious little doll had grown up with a pitch-black heart. Starting from age 5, she became unusually fixated on me. She wanted everything she believed was rightfully hers: my parents' attention, the approval of teachers and friends, and eventually, my fiancé Jason. And the ways she went about getting these things. Faking illnesses, playing the victim, spreading rumors. She really did take a lot from me with those methods. I never thought much of it at the time, but she always acted like she'd won. Maybe, in her mind, she really believed she was some kind of master manipulator. Thinking of that made me smirk silently. Emily ignored my earlier comments, casually raising the cup of coffee to her lips. She took a slow sip. "It took me more than 10 minutes to brew this. It's really not bad. A shame you're not even gonna taste it." I smiled in return. "Yeah, what a shame." The room went quiet for a few seconds. Then she set the cup down. "You can't marry William." "Why not?" "Because you're not good enough for him." I nodded and asked, "Oh, and you are?" The jab clearly landed. For a split second, panic flashed across her eyes, but even now she still tried to mask her scheming with righteous concern. "Olivia, I'm serious. You don't understand who William is. You're way out of your depth. I'm saying this for your own good." "For my own good," I repeated, laughing lightly. That old line again. I sat down on the edge of the bed and pretended to think it over for a moment. "So is it that I'm not good enough? Or that you just want to keep him for yourself?" I asked. "I've already given you Jason. Isn't that enough?" Emily instinctively replied, "Jason and I are truly in love." Then, realizing something was off, her eyes widened in disbelief. "Wait, you said gave him to me?" Poor, clueless big sister. I smiled and raised my fingers, pretending to count. "Didn't you just say you two were truly in love? Let me guess, when did the true love start? Was it the engagement party a few days ago? The countless secret gifts over the years?" Or maybe the night after graduation. A loud crash echoed through the room, the sound of something heavy hitting the floor followed by ceramic shattering. It startled the three people downstairs, and they rushed up the stairs. When they entered, Emily was collapsed on the floor of my room, weakly clutching her stomach and wincing. Her white loungewear was soaked with spilled coffee, and the shattered cup lay beside her. I sat calmly in front of her, watching the scene coldly. Our mother, Linda, gasped. The sight pierced her heart. She rushed to Emily's side in panic and concern. "What happened? What's going on? Emily, what's wrong?" Emily opened her eyes weakly, tears flowing uncontrollably down her face. "It hurts. Mom, don't blame Olivia. I didn't stand properly. She didn't push me." Linda's face darkened with rage as she helped Emily up. For a woman who prided herself on elegance, she didn't even care that coffee was smeared on her hands. She pointed furiously at me. "Olivia, she's your sister, and she's carrying your nephew. How dare you push her?" Her voice grew louder and shriller. She tried to stand up, likely preparing to slap me, but her legs gave out and she collapsed, right onto Emily's lap. Emily's sobbing cut off for a split second. I pressed my lips together, trying hard not to laugh. People always look overly busy when they're embarrassed. Linda scrambled to the side, tears now falling from her eyes. Holding Emily close, she shouted at my father, "Charles, why are you just standing there? Call someone. Call the doctor. This is a disaster." Snapped out of his daze, my father turned to leave the room in a hurry. But William, who had been quietly standing at the doorway, blocked his path with a calm yet distant voice. "Mr. Parker, there's no need to rush." Charles froze, anxious and confused. "Mr. Sinclair, what are you doing?" William didn't answer directly. Instead, he gave a slight nod in my direction. Everyone in the room turned to look at me. I slowly rose from the chair and clapped lightly. "You know," I said, "this right here is the best performance my dear sister has ever given. Truly top-notch. Shame it ends tonight." Linda had no idea what I was planning. She glared at me, panic and fury mixing on her face. Her voice cracked as she shouted, "What nonsense are you spouting? Why won't you let your father call a doctor? Are you trying to kill your sister and that unborn child?" I furrowed my brow and casually covered my ears with my hands, then looked toward William for help. He lifted his hand and tapped his knuckle lightly on the door, a gesture to quiet the room. "Mrs. Parker," he said, his voice low and steady, "believe me, no one in this room is more worried about Emily than Olivia." That finally shut them up. I continued, "If anything were to happen to Emily in my room, I'd be implicated too. I'm not that self-sacrificing." Linda looked down at Emily's tear-streaked, miserable face, then back at me, confused. What are you trying to do?" I walked over to the bed and picked up 2 phones. Then I stepped to the desk and pulled another phone from behind the books. It was Charles's. I turned the screen toward them, showing the video recording still running. Emily's sobs stopped instantly. I caught it, the flicker of panic and fear in her eyes, barely hidden. At that moment, our parents both fell into a tense silence, the realization finally creeping in that something was very wrong. My room had never been quieter than it was now. I didn't drag things out. I turned on the projector in the room, connected it to William's phone, and played the video we had just saved from the very beginning. The first few minutes of the footage showed only me, folding clothes alone in the room. Then came the moment Emily walked in holding a cup of coffee. A few minutes later, my voice could be heard clearly. "Let me guess, when did you and Jason start truly being in love? Was it the engagement party a couple days ago? Was it all those secret favors over the years? Or maybe, the night after graduation?" Emily's face went ghost white in an instant. She stormed a few steps toward me, gritting her teeth. "What nonsense are you talking about?" The video continued, my voice still crystal clear. "Room 107, 10th floor, Sterling Hotel. I was the one who deleted that hallway footage, the one where you and he couldn't even wait to start ripping each other's clothes off." Upon hearing that, Emily grabbed the cup of coffee and poured it all over herself, her voice sharp and icy with hatred. "So what? You owe me this." Then, without even blinking, she smashed the cup hard against the floor, and with terrifying precision, avoided the shards and dropped herself to the ground. Clutching her stomach, she cried out in pain, just in time for everyone downstairs to rush up and burst into the room. The video ended with me walking toward the camera. That was it. Silence. The room was frozen. Linda's face, once full of tender concern, stiffened with disbelief. Emily, why would you do this? Charles's face was red with shame. A man who had always prided himself on being composed and dignified now couldn't stop himself from shouting, "What the hell are you doing, Emily?" Emily's tears kept flowing. She shook her head wildly and grabbed Linda's hand in a panic, clutching it so tightly her knuckles turned white. No, it's not. Okay, stop," I said, clapping my hands and cutting off their performance. "I'm just presenting everyone here with a little truth. I don't really care what happens next. William and I have other matters to attend to, so we'll be going now." As if my words snapped her out of a trance, Emily sprang to her feet. Ignoring the shards of glass around her feet, she rushed toward me, screaming, "You did this on purpose. You want to ruin me. You want to steal everything from me, you bitch. You." But before she could reach me, Linda stood up too and slapped her across the face. Emily froze, utterly stunned. Her eyes welled with fresh tears, pure disbelief in her expression. Linda pulled her hand back, her gaze softening with pity as she stared at Emily's face, where a red mark was slowly blooming. Her voice trembled. "What happened to you? How did you become like this? That's your sister." Emily was stunned by the blow. Slowly, she raised her hand to her cheek, tears streaming uncontrollably as she stared at Linda, her instincts kicking in. Falling back on the only thing she knew how to do, cry and play the victim. "You hit me. For her? Mom, have you forgotten how many times I gave in to her all these years? I gave her everything. I only wanted Jason. What did I do wrong?" Linda pulled away slightly, her hand shaking as she gripped Emily's arm. "I just saw what you did, that's all." Emily shoved her hand away and laughed coldly. "Saw what? I was just protecting my love in my own way. And are you really going to take Olivia's side without even thinking?" Linda shook her head, opening her mouth to say something. I couldn't take it anymore. All right, I cut in. "Everything Emily just said is correct. She's right, but I've got just one question." Everyone turned to look at me. I stared at Emily. "That was your first time getting slapped, wasn't it? How does it feel?" Emily's face turned visibly pale, but the red handprint across her cheek made her look utterly ridiculous. I couldn't help but laugh. "If you've got nothing to say, then we're done here. I think I've seen enough of this performance." It was time for us to leave. Whatever happened next was for them to deal with. I had no interest in watching it play out. Emily was ordered by Charles to return to her room. Both he and Linda awkwardly walked William and me to the door. Just as I was about to step into the car, Linda grabbed the car door and tugged gently on my sleeve. "Olivia?" I didn't say a word. William squinted, then pulled me straight into the car and leaned halfway over my lap. With a polite tone, he looked at her and said, "Mrs. Parker, Miss Emily, if either of you ever considers joining the entertainment industry, feel free to reach out." He paused meaningfully, then added, "Because I must say, you've got quite the natural talent." Linda's fingers clenched where they had grasped nothing but air. She didn't respond. I glanced up at her briefly, then lowered my gaze and waved as I said, "We're leaving, Mom." Something about that "Mom" seemed to soften her. Linda forced a smile and gave me a small wave back. "All right." The door shut, the window rolled up, and the pained look in her eyes was finally sealed off. I let out a long breath. Realization always comes too late. From childhood to now, Emily had pulled stunts like today's far too many times. No matter how cunning a child is, how could someone that young never slip up? The truth was, our parents had been biased from the start. Even their eyes and ears had become biased, only seeing and hearing what they wanted to believe. So again and again, they ignored my cries for help, always siding with the one who looked more delicate, more like a victim. Always siding with Emily. Fortunately, those days were over. And thankfully, I'd stopped caring a long time ago. Back at William's house, I planned to take a much-needed nap. Last night had ended in chaos, but Charles couldn't even wait a full day. The moment he confirmed that William and I were serious about getting married, he eagerly called and asked us to come over for lunch the next day. Of course, it wasn't just about lunch. Anyone could guess what he was really after. I had no interest in having my appetite ruined at the dinner table, so I dragged William over early in the morning, hoping to avoid the meal entirely. Luckily, Emily didn't disappoint. She caused enough of a scene to help us escape early. The spring sunlight was perfect, ideal for napping. I had just flopped onto the bed when an annoying presence edged closer. "I'm tired," I mumbled from under the covers, my voice muffled. A moment later, the bed dipped beside me as William reached over and pulled me into his arms. Forced to leave the warmth of my blanket, I opened my eyes and found his flawless face inches from mine. "You're not planning to back out on our bet, are you?" "The bet? Right. That silly wager we made about how long my parents could pretend to be patient with their new golden son-in-law. I'd boldly claimed they'd last a week, and now I suddenly remembered what I had promised if I lost, and I could feel my cheeks burning. "This really something we should be talking about in broad daylight?" I mumbled. William narrowed his eyes with a smirk, his tone playful with a faint trace of threat. "So, you are backing out?" "Of course not." But before I could finish, my words were swallowed by his mouth as he leaned in. I never could resist William's kisses. By the time he finally let me go, I was breathless, tears welling at the corners of my eyes from sheer lack of air. "I'm seriously tired," I panted. William brushed his lips against mine again and said softly, "Then I'll sleep with you." Still gasping, I pushed him weakly. "Go over there." With a content sigh, he laid down beside me. "Sleep. Rest up. You'll want your energy for the show." 3 days later, Jason publicly announced that he and Emily were going to redo their engagement party. A formal invitation was sent, directly to William. William slapped the invitation into my hands with a grin and raised his brows. "Let's go. Time for the show." So this was the show he mentioned earlier. I smiled as I took the invite. "How exciting. I can't wait." The Maybach pulled up outside the venue. William got out, walked around the front of the car, and opened the door for me. I took his arm and entered with him. This time, the engagement venue was much grander. You could tell they'd spent more time, more money, more effort. Even the media had been invited. I glanced around and chuckled. Must be true love, huh? They really went all out, way more than they did for mine. William scanned the space, lips curling slightly. "This is what you call all out?" I smiled back and played along. "I'm just trying to comfort you." It was pretty average, honestly. But there were a lot of people inside, heirs of powerful families, CEOs in sharp suits, gathered in groups of 2s and 3s, drinking and chatting. There were even some glamorous celebrities and eye-catching influencers in the mix. Still, most of these guests weren't the kind you could just casually invite, especially not by the Parker or Miller families alone. That raised a question in my mind. Had something happened with the Parker-Miller alliance that I didn't know about? Luckily, it didn't take long for my curiosity to be answered. From the moment William and I walked into the venue, we gradually became the center of attention. Not far away, someone was already swirling a wine glass and clearly getting ready to come over and talk to him. I lightly tapped William's arm. "Looks like this whole crowd showed up for you." William had it all: wealth, looks, a powerful family background. As the famed Prince of West City, he'd stayed notoriously low profile in recent years, barely ever attending social events. So when a mysterious fiancé suddenly appeared beside him, people couldn't help but be curious. And once they found out that person was me, Olivia Parker, daughter of the Parker family, and more importantly, Emily's one and only biological sister, it made sense for me to be at her engagement party. Everyone here was gambling on one possibility. What if I brought William with me? For most of them, this might be one of the very few chances they had to interact with him. Not far away, Jason emerged from the crowd with a glass of wine, raised it toward us with a friendly smile. "Olivia, Mr. Sinclair?" A server came by with 2 glasses of wine. I took one, giving Jason a small nod of acknowledgement. After all, this was his stage. I raised my glass in a gesture of congratulations. What exactly I was congratulating him for? Well, that was open to interpretation. Jason didn't mind William ignoring him. He took a small sip, nodded back, and turned to rejoin the crowd. I found a table to set my wine down and turned back to see William already surrounded by a few older executives who seemed familiar with him. He really couldn't go anywhere unnoticed. I moved toward a quieter corner, deliberately ignoring the pair of eyes that had been locked onto me the entire time. I casually sipped my drink, nibbled on a small cake, and watched the guests slowly fill in. Once it looked like almost everyone had arrived, I set my glass down and leaned forward onto the table, pretending to fall asleep. As expected, the one who had been staring at me couldn't resist any longer. He came over, gently holding me up. "Miss, are you all right? You should come upstairs to rest." I kept my eyes closed, silently smirking. Looks like the real show was finally about to begin. So he brought me upstairs, carefully undressed me with surprising tenderness, and even thoughtfully pulled the blanket halfway up my body. Then he quietly shut the door and left. Once the hallway noises had faded, I sat up in bed, feeling around in the dark until I found my dress by the edge. I slipped it back on. The room was dim and eerily silent. My phone had been taken earlier by that helpful gentleman, so I had to adapt to the darkness. I wandered the space. It was spotless and tidy, not even a wardrobe to hide in. There wasn't a single place to take cover. And I had no chance of getting out through the front door. Giving up on the idea of hiding, I sat on the sofa by the window and rubbed my aching shoulders. "What kind of surprise do you think he has planned for me?" I muttered. A faint electronic buzz sounded in my left earring. Then William's cold voice came through. "You might want to brace yourself. He's not going to be kind." I got up, walked to the bed, picked up the blanket, and wrapped it around myself before returning to the sofa. "Now that's a pretty heartbreaking conclusion." William scoffed. "Yeah, heartbreaking enough to make you laugh." I chuckled softly but didn't respond. Truth be told, I was curious. What kind of surprise did Emily have in store for me tonight? There was a noise at the door. Instinctively, I tightened the blanket around me and turned toward the sound. The door creaked open slowly, and the light from the hallway stabbed into the dark room, forcing me to squint. Through the blurred glare, I saw two figures slip in. Then came the soft rustling of clothes. One man's hoarse voice urged, "Hurry up, we film and go." Followed by another man's voice, more nervous, more frantic, I know. The two men didn't turn on the lights. I could vaguely make out their shadows as they fumbled their way toward the bed. Curled up on the sofa, I buried myself deeper under the blanket and silently counted down in my head, 5, 4, 3. The two of them groped around the bed, searching. "Where is she?" "She's not here." "I told you, on the bed." "Turn on the light." 2, 1. Right on cue, the door swung open, and light flooded the room. I instinctively yanked the blanket up over my eyes, not wanting to see anything I shouldn't. The sound of a switch snapped crisply through the air, followed by William's voice, cold as ice. Well, you two filming an art project with a side of chili pepper in here?" The two men were immediately dragged toward the doorway by William's men. William scooped me up from the sofa, blanket and all, and carried me out of the room in his arms. Back at the door, the two men, now dressed in service uniforms, knelt on the ground. One of them still had a small camera hanging around his neck. I averted my gaze and turned to William. "Put me down." I faced the two men. "Who sent you?" They exchanged a quick glance before one of them answered decisively. "It was Miss Emily. She asked us to get compromising photos of you. Specifically requested full face shots." "Miss Emily, we were just doing what we were paid to do. Please, you and Mr. Sinclair, could you maybe?" I smiled politely and turned to walk away. William pulled out his phone. "Call the cops." Emily had spent the past 20 years so used to having the upper hand over me. That day I returned to the Parker house and flipped everything upside down, even driving her out by nightfall. There was no way she would just sit back and let me live in peace. So this? No surprise. She didn't even bother to be subtle. Meanwhile, the engagement party downstairs had picked up steam. At the far end of the stage, a giant screen was playing a slideshow of Jason and Emily's childhood memories together. I was clearly present in many of those moments. Some of those photos were taken during the years Jason was chasing me. I had no idea what excuses Emily gave to pose for those shots. But here they were, packaged neatly into sweet memories for everyone to admire. Funny, really. Off to the side, a pianist was playing a dreamy wedding melody, filling the room with soft, romantic notes, wrapping every guest in a warm haze of blessings. William slipped an arm around my waist from behind. "I think he'll really enjoy the gift you've prepared." I looked down at Emily, all smiles and sweetness, radiant as ever. I didn't even intend to give it, I murmured. But my sister, she's just too naive. She walks the same path blindly, never leaves herself a way out. Maybe I'd let her get away with too much over the years. That's probably why she was always this stupid. The screen was now showing formal engagement photos of Jason and Emily, fully dressed for the occasion. The host gestured for them to step up onto the stage. Arm in arm, they smiled at each other and turned toward the guests, just about to speak, when suddenly, from the speakers flanking the giant screen, a familiar voice rang out. My voice. The screen remained dark, but the audio was clear. It was the conversation I had whispered into the tiny hidden mic inside my earring not long ago. What kind of surprise do you think he'll have planned for me? Then came the voices of the two men dressed as waiters. It was Miss Emily who told us to get footage of you and another man. She specifically said your full face must be shown. Miss Emily, we're just doing our job. You and Mr. Sinclair, please. On stage, Emily's face went ghostly pale. She grabbed Jason and frantically tried to shut down the screen. Who's in charge of this? Turn it off. What is this? Shut it all off. But it was too late. William's people had already blocked anyone from entering the projection room. The screen continued to play. This time, it was footage from my room, a clip of me packing my things. Then Emily entered, holding a coffee cup. The video cut to the scene from days ago when that cup shattered. The recording ended just as I approached the camera. The entire room erupted. Emily had fallen to her knees, crying uncontrollably. Jason knelt beside her, holding her with a shocked, disoriented expression on his face. I let go of the balcony railing and leaned back into William's arms. I almost forgot what the next video was. The screen dimmed again. 3 seconds later, Emily's voice came through before the video resumed. I really, really love this trophy. Olivia? The image on the screen slowly came into focus. Emily looked noticeably younger, holding a crystal trophy in her hands and studying it carefully. Anyone with decent eyesight could clearly see the name engraved on it. Olivia Parker. It was my award. In the video, I was sitting on the sofa in the corner of the living room, ignoring her. Emily didn't care whether I was watching or not. She suddenly hurled the trophy to the floor at her feet and gasped, I'm sorry, Olivia. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have said anything. Please don't be mad. Moments later, Charles and Linda appeared, rushing over to shield Emily as if she were the victim. Emily put on a pitiful, soft-spoken tone, as if trying to defend me. Don't blame Olivia. I shouldn't have asked about the trophy. She didn't mean to throw it at me. I just startled her. Please don't be upset. Her attempt at calming them down only made things worse. Linda pointed at me, her voice trembling with anger and disappointment. How did I end up with a daughter like you? This is your sister's home. The video kept playing. Back in the banquet hall, the media couldn't sit still anymore. Live streams had started, camera flashes flickered non-stop, and the guests closest to the main couple began backing away. Oh my God, they're real sisters? Wait, those are her biological parents? You think you know someone. Jason looks completely clueless. No way he's that clueless. How could your fiancé not know any of this? Didn't Jason get engaged to the younger Parker sister first? Then suddenly switched to the older one? You think Emily's jealous of her little sister, and that's why she stole her fiancé? The more you think about it, the darker it gets. The buzz of gossip drowned out the video's sound. What had started as a heartwarming engagement celebration had morphed into Emily's public trial. She sat frozen, desperately gripping Jason's arm, trying to get him to help her escape the spotlight. But Jason was in too much shock, completely stunned. When he didn't move, she shoved him aside so hard he fell onto the floor. Meanwhile, Charles and Linda had been surrounded by guests and couldn't do a thing. Emily wobbled slightly, rolled her eyes back dramatically, and collapsed as though fainting. The guests backed off again, not wanting to be accused of anything. Chaos broke out once more. William gestured, and someone quickly handed him a microphone. He tapped it lightly with 2 elegant fingers. Thump, thump. His deep, resonant voice rang out through the hall speakers. Everyone fell silent, looking around, then slowly turned their eyes toward the second floor, toward me and William. He held the microphone out to me. I met his gaze, then looked toward the big screen. My voice was calm. I hope today's program hasn't let anyone down. After a pause, I looked toward Emily, who was now being helped up but still stubbornly pretending to be unconscious. Her carefully styled makeup was ruined. I just wonder if my sister is satisfied with how this turned out. The sister who had always been spoiled, always self-righteous, and always naive, she had finally been shaken awake by Jason. She blinked as if snapping out of a daze, then glared at me with unfiltered rage. As though she'd given up holding back. Her voice cracked. "Olivia, you're insane. You're pushing me." I picked up right where she left off. "Pushing you to kill yourself?" Emily froze, staring at me like she couldn't understand the words I'd just spoken. I smiled, not hiding my pleasure. "Isn't that what you've spent the past 20 years saying to me?" For years, whenever I achieved something, won an award, received praise, Emily would wait until our parents weren't around, then gently take my hand and whisper with tears in her eyes, "I really envy you, Olivia. You're healthy, full of energy, you have so many happy memories, you work hard and earn so much recognition. I'm truly happy for you." Then she'd turn bitter. "But we're both mom's daughters. Why do you get to be happy and healthy, have everything you want, while I am locked away at home? I can't go outside, can't do anything. I feel so miserable." And after saying those things, she would smash my trophies, tear my certificates to pieces, and lie there in the wreckage crying, whispering through her tears, "You're so perfect. You've taken everything from me. You make it seem like my whole life was a mistake. You're always pushing me to die." But that was always where it stopped, with words. She never actually meant to die. She never treated me like a sister, more like an enemy. Maybe she truly wished I would die. Or maybe she simply wished I had never been born. I sighed inwardly. "Emily. Oh, Emily. With the kind of person you are, what made you think I'd ever be a good little sister to you?" There were moments, brief, fleeting moments, when I, too, wondered what it would feel like to slide a sharp piece of smooth glass straight across her neck. At the edge of the venue, the live stream was still running. I swallowed down some words that weren't suitable for this setting. After all, this was still my sister's engagement party. Just then, William's secretary stepped up to Charles and Linda with a box in his hands. I softened my tone slightly. I had originally prepared a different gift. The box opened. Inside were a property deed and a formal transfer agreement. Someone nearby recognized it instantly and gasped. "That's from Cloudcrest Heights." "Yes," another murmured, "it's Cloudcrest. Even money can't always buy a place there, and power doesn't guarantee you a spot either." Miss Olivia really went all out. Charles's eyes lit up as he reached toward the box, clearly intending to take it. But just as his hand neared, the lid snapped shut. I smiled faintly, politely. It was meant to be a gift, but now it'll have to count as an apology. I turned the box over to Charles's assistant. "It's yours now." Linda was already crying. I didn't meet the look of grief in her eyes. I simply turned away and looked at Emily, whose face had completely lost control of its expressions. And just like when we were kids, I apologized with utmost sincerity. "I'm sorry, Emily. This won't happen again." I had apologized once, long ago, when I was young and still valued the bond between sisters. I gave up an award and defended her fragile pride. But this apology, it was different. This one came after I had utterly destroyed everything she'd ever believed would make her happy. Whatever existed between us, it ended here. The engagement party concluded in utter disaster. William and I were back on the headlines again. People even dug up footage from our engagement party, the one they'd tried to bury. But this time the tone was different. "Miss Olivia has to be working from a script, right? Forget the script. This girl's got unshakable confidence, evidence in hand, and a perfect sense of timing. Deadly. Top-tier revenge arc, no weak heroine nonsense, ruthless, sharp, and unstoppable. Everyone's awful, and I love it. Olivia's the only one I trust with my life." Meanwhile, Mr. Sinclair just watches it all with that indulgent smile. Iconic. I mean, he's not even trying to stop her. He looks proud. Back at the Parker estate, the phone didn't stop ringing. Call after call from every family member. I didn't answer a single one. Eventually, the police reached out about the attempted blackmail. I had to cooperate with the investigation. And that's when I ran into someone I really didn't want to see. Jason. He looked defeated, worn out, His company had plummeted in value right after the engagement scandal, and the Miller family was feeling the ripple effects. He should look like that. He had never been particularly capable, never ambitious. He just clung to people who gave him value. Emily had been hospitalized. Jason raised his hand as if to stop me from closing the door in his face. Olivia, wait. I moved to shut the door. Don't bother, leave. He blocked the door. I didn't mean for any of this. On the day of the college entrance exam, I was planning to confess to you. I drank too much. I didn't know why it ended up being Emily. I stood behind the door, refusing to look at him. So all of this, it was over that one night? Jason, that's enough. I dragged out my words, voice low and sharp. Never mind how many times you and Emily hooked up behind my back. Did it ever occur to you to ask why it was her that night? Jason looked stunned. What do you mean? I took 2 steps back and sneered. The stuff in your drink? I arranged that. The text inviting you out? I made sure Emily saw it. The hotel room you two used? I set it up just for you. His hands gripped the doorframe tightly. His eyes widened. You did all that? I raised my hand again and gestured dismissively. We were engaged. Engaged. Do you understand English? Or is that too hard for you? I was genuinely tired. All my life, Jason had followed me around like a shadow. No matter how many times I dodged, avoided, or pushed him away, he kept coming back. And now, standing there looking at his stunned face, I could see it all again. The years of running, of avoiding someone I never wanted anything from. He looked like he was about to break into pieces from sadness, but I just stared at him coldly. Me liking you, what does that have to do with anything? Don't you get it yet? I said flatly. I've hated you from the very beginning. I've never liked you. Not even a little. Back when I thought I might have to marry you someday, I could barely sleep at night. Being chased around by him my entire childhood, being forced into the role of Jason's fiancée, it was the worst time of my life. All I ever did was give him back to Emily, just like I said before. I wish them the best. May the two of you end up together, I'd told him. And I meant it. After the engagement party, the Miller and Parker families officially fell out. Their engagement collapsed entirely. In order to avoid being dragged down with them, Miller Corp quickly cut ties with Jason's studio. Thankfully, they backed out early enough. Only the studio suffered. But the Parker family? Their fall was catastrophic. The company crashed overnight. Charles and Linda vanished from the public eye, and Emily was diagnosed with mild delusional disorder and severe depression. She was sent to a private psychiatric center in the outskirts of West City. William returned home with both of the lavish gifts we'd brought to the party, untouched. The Parker estate was sealed off. William acquired Parker Enterprises outright. With no way to repay the massive legal damages, the family was forced to mortgage the Cloudcrest villa I had gifted them. Some debts can never be repaid, not those of raising a child, and not the bond between sisters. That house was the only thing I gave them, and it was also their last lifeline. The past had finally been settled, and for once, I had peace. But I didn't expect to suddenly receive invitations from nearly every wealthy family in town, all eager to host me. Of course, we all knew the truth. They didn't care about me. They wanted the man behind me. Luckily, William turned all of them down and whisked me away to his family's estate. On a deep-toned sofa in the living room of the Shen family's ancestral home, William's grandmother, her hair completely silver, was glaring at me, furious. "Oh my, and who's this girl supposed to be?" she huffed. "I don't think I know her." She set her teacup down with a loud clack, turned her head away, and refused to look at me. I rushed over and wrapped my arms around her. "Grandma, it's me, Olivia. Take another look, I know you recognize me." "Olivia who?" she sniffed. "Don't know her, never heard of her." Still not looking at me. I slipped to her other side, hugging her tightly and pouting. "You have to know me. You said you liked me best. Don't be mad, Grandma. I was just busy cleaning up some annoying people these past few days. I finally have time now. I'll spend more of it with you, I promise." Hearing my explanation, Grandma's hand gently gripped mine. She turned her head and glared at William. "And you? You saw she was in trouble and didn't even offer to help?" William raised his hands, flopping down into a nearby chair. "She never came to me for help. What could I do?" Just then, William's father came down the stairs, dressed casually but still giving off a dignified, upright air. The man looked noble and serene, like a scholar from a classic painting. He gave me a warm look and said with a chuckle, "Olivia's quite the star these days. This rascal might not be able to keep up with her." I smiled politely, slightly embarrassed. "Uncle, I didn't expect you to be here." "Your aunt heard you were coming and insisted we get here early," he said. Sure enough, William's mother followed behind, graceful in her simple dress. She spoke kindly. "I thought it'd be the perfect time for a family dinner. And Olivia, you can come with me later to look at engagement dresses." Grandma patted my head gently and smiled. Time flies, our little girl's all grown up. I leaned into her touch and smiled too. It's true, it's already been 10 years since I first met William, when I was 15. Compared to the gloomy Parker house, the Shen family home felt like my real home. On the day of our engagement party, the rooftop of Jiwang Garden was transformed. William had poured his heart into the surprise, and now I finally saw what he'd been working on. I lifted my dress and pushed the door open. There was no crowd, no cameras, only a sea of white roses flown in from around the world, filling the space. At the end of the red carpet stood only our family. William's mother stood beside his father, holding a small gift box. His grandmother held a microphone, her voice soft and warm as it echoed gently through the air. "Olivia, welcome home." William led me forward, guiding my hands to take the box from his mother. Inside was a smooth, deep green jade bracelet. He slipped it onto my wrist. "Welcome home, Olivia." Tears welled up in my eyes. For once, I was speechless. How lucky I was to have met William when I was young, to have spent 10 years growing beside him. And now, with everything behind us, we had finally found peace. Top of form, bottom of form.